Okay, so for this deep dive, you send over a book excerpt and also an audio clip from a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we're going to be looking at the digital Sabbath.
Yeah.
So we're going to be going through the history and the psychology behind it, and maybe even some practical ways people are actually doing
Yeah.
this.
One of the things that I found really interesting in the sources you sent over is how they look at the digital Sabbath as not just like this trendy new way to detox from tech, but as something much more, something deeper, like how people are managing their attention in a world of distractions.
Well, yeah, and distraction, it's not a new problem, is it?
Oh, no.
But it does feel like something about the digital age just makes it so much more overwhelming, right?
Oh,
When we're
no.
just carrying around these little distraction machines in our pockets all the time.
Yeah, and it's not just about willpower.
Right.
These technologies are designed to hijack our attention. They really tap into our very primal neurological pathways. Like each time you get a little notification, it triggers a little dopamine hit,
Oh, right.
and that makes us crave more.
Yes.
Creates this feedback loop that can be hard to break.
So it's not just me then.
No,
Like, I'm not just being weak-willed. There's actual brain chemistry at play.
no, you're definitely not alone in feeling that pull. I mean, the Buddhist concept of the monkey mind, I think that's a great way to visualize this.
Oh, okay.
Our minds are always, chattering, jumping from one thought to another, just like a monkey swinging from branch to branch.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. But how does technology make this monkey mind even more, I guess, monkey-ish?
Well, just think about it. Every time your phone buzzes or a new email pops up, it's like someone's throwing a banana into the monkey's cage. It immediately grabs our attention and pulls us away from whatever we were trying to focus on.
Right, right.
And, the more we give into those distractions, those pathways, those neural pathways become stronger, and it makes it harder to resist the next time.
Okay, so it's not just that we have more distractions now. It's that the distractions we have are just working on us in a more fundamental way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that really struck me in the book excerpt was this idea that we've always been entangled with tools.
Yeah.
And it went all the way back, to prehistoric times.
Right.
Like even the first stone tools, they weren't just objects. They were extensions of our minds and bodies.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of what makes the digital age so unique. We've always used tools to extend our capabilities.
Right.
But digital technology kind of goes a step further. You think about something like the internet,
Right.
It's not just a tool, it's an entire environment,
Yeah.
a virtual landscape
Yeah.
that we're becoming more and more immersed in.
So it's like we're not just using tools, we're actually inhabiting them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy thought.
Yeah.
But if we're being honest, sometimes it feels less like inhabiting and more like being trapped.
I think a lot of people feel that way. And that's, we call this tyranny of real time. We're just constantly bombarded with information and expected to respond instantly, always plugged into what's happening right now. It's like we're losing the ability to step back, to reflect, to simply be.
It's that feeling you get like when you just have to check your phone,
Mm-hmm.
even if you know there's probably nothing new there.
Exactly. And that feeling of needing to stay constantly connected can actually make us feel more disconnected from ourselves
Yeah.
and from the people around us.
So where does the idea of a digital Sabbath fit into all of this?
Well,
Is it just about taking a break from our devices, or is there something deeper going on?
it's definitely about taking a break.
Right.
But I think it's more than just a detox.
Mhm.
It's about reclaiming our attention,
Okay.
creating space for reflection,
Oh.
and reconnecting with a more human sense of time. It's like a countermeasure
Okay.
to that tyranny of the present moment.
I like that. A countermeasure.
Mm.
So instead of being ruled by the demands of the digital world, we're choosing to step outside of that for a while.
Yeah.
But is this a new idea,
Wow.
this digital Sabbath? Or are there historical parallels?
What's fascinating is that the concept of a Sabbath, a day of rest and disconnection, it's actually deeply ingrained in many cultures and traditions throughout history. You think about religious practices,
Right.
like fasting or observing a day of prayer. These are all about intentionally withdrawing from worldly concerns to cultivate inner peace and focus.
So it's like the digital Sabbath is tapping into this ancient human need to disconnect, to
Yeah.
step outside of the everyday hustle.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is we're seeing this need reflected in the growing digital Sabbath movement. It's
Mm.
not just a fringe idea anymore. You have people from all walks of life who are embracing it.
Yeah?
You know, from tech executives to artists to everyday folks who are just feeling overwhelmed.
And I guess that makes sense. We all crave a little peace and quiet sometimes,
Yeah.
a chance to disconnect from all the noise, reconnect with ourselves.
Right.
But I have to admit, the idea of a whole day without technology still feels a little daunting.
Yeah, I hear you. But the good news is it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Okay,
The key is to find what works for you,
right.
to experiment and discover your own rhythm
Okay.
of connection and disconnection.
So maybe instead of thinking about it as a rigid rule, it's more like a set of guidelines,
Mm.
a way of being more intentional with our technology use.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices
Okay.
about how we want to spend our time, our energy,
Right.
and finding ways to create more space for the things that truly matter.
That makes sense. So how do we actually create this space? Like, what are some practical steps people can take to start incorporating a digital Sabbath into their lives?
Well, before we jump into, practical steps, I think it's important to understand a bit more about the psychological benefits of disconnecting.
Oh, okay.
What happens to our minds and bodies when we step away from the digital world?
That's a great point. So let's delve into the psychology of the digital Sabbath. What are we actually gaining when we unplug?
That's where it gets really interesting. The benefits go far beyond just feeling less stressed.
Okay.
We're talking about increased creativity, um, improved relationships, and even a deeper sense of purpose.
Wow, okay. I'm definitely intrigued. Let's unpack this further. So you're saying that unplugging can actually lead to more creativity.
Yeah.
That seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, wouldn't we get more ideas by, constantly being bombarded with information?
Well, that's the trap that a lot of us fall into. We
Yeah.
think more input equals more ideas, but our brains actually need downtime to process information, make connections, and to generate those aha moments.
That's like we need to let our minds wander a little bit, get off the beaten path and explore some uncharted territory.
Exactly. And there's a whole bunch of research that backs this up. Studies have shown that activities like spending time in nature or meditating or even just daydreaming can significantly enhance creative thinking.
So it's like giving our minds permission to be bored. I mean, that doesn't sound very productive.
Well, I know it might sound counterintuitive, but boredom can actually be a very powerful catalyst for creativity.
Mhm.
When we're bored, our minds are free to wander, make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas.
hmm
It's in those moments of quiet contemplation that our most innovative ideas often come out.
So I'm starting to see the connection here. So by disconnecting from the constant stimulation of the digital world, we're actually creating the space for our minds to be more creative,
Precisely.
more innovative.
And it's not just about creativity. The source material you provided also mentioned the benefits of a digital Sabbath for our relationships.
Right. Stronger relationships
Yeah.
was a key benefit that came up.
Yeah.
But how does unplugging actually translate into better connections with people?
Well, think about what happens when you're spending time with someone and you're constantly checking your phone.
Right.
You're basically sending the message that whatever is on that screen is more important than the person in front of you.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear message.
Yeah, and it's not just about being polite.
Okay.
When we're constantly distracted, we're not fully present in our interactions.
Mhm.
We miss the nuances of conversation, the subtle cues that deepen connection.
So it's like we're sacrificing the quality of our interactions for the quantity of information we're consuming.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the irony is that by disconnecting from our devices, we can actually connect with people on a much deeper level. We
Yep.
become better listeners,
Right.
more empathetic,
Yeah.
more attuned to the needs of others.
You mentioned something about flow state earlier and how digital disconnection can help us achieve that.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little more about that?
So flow state is a psychological term for that feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity where time seems to disappear.
Right.
You're fully immersed in the moment. It's often described as a state of effortless concentration and enjoyment.
It's like when you're so engrossed in a project that you just lose track of time completely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, while digital technology can sometimes help to facilitate flow state,
Right.
it can also be a major obstacle.
Hmm.
The constant interruptions, notifications, demands for our attention can make it almost impossible to achieve that deep level of focus.
So by stepping away from those distractions, we're creating the conditions for flow state to emerge more naturally.
Precisely.
Okay.
Think about activities like reading a book or having a meaningful conversation,
Hmm.
pursuing a hobby. These are all activities that can lead to flow state when we approach them with full presence and attention.
And the digital Sabbath, by its very nature, encourages that kind of presence and focus.
Exactly. It's like creating a container for those flow experiences to occur.
This all makes sense, but I think for a lot of people, the biggest hurdle is just knowing where to start.
Hmm.
The idea of completely unplugging for a whole day can just feel overwhelming.
Yeah, that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the digital Sabbath is that it's customizable.
Okay.
You can start small, experiment with different approaches, and find what works best for you.
So what are some baby steps people can take?
Well,
Like if someone's never tried a digital Sabbath before, where would you suggest they begin?
one of the simplest and most effective starting points is to create a tech-free zone in your home.
Okay.
Choose a specific area like the dining table or the bedroom and make a rule that no devices are allowed in that space.
So like a digital sanctuary,
Yeah,
a place where technology is just off limits.
exactly.
Yeah. That.
And another great starting point is to designate certain times of day as tech-free,
Okay.
like meal times.
Or the hour before bed.
Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
So it's about creating those little pockets of disconnection throughout your day instead of trying to do a complete overhaul all at once.
Right. It's about building those digital mindfulness muscles gradually.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not just about what you're disconnecting from, but also what you're connecting to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not just about avoiding technology. It's about replacing those digital habits with something more fulfilling.
Exactly. Think about the things that bring you joy, that nourish your soul, the things you never seem to have time for.
Mm-hmm.
Could be spending time in nature,
Right.
reading a book, having a deep conversation, pursuing a creative hobby.
Right.
The possibilities are endless.
The key is to fill those tech-free moments with activities that make you feel truly alive.
Hmm.
Activities that bring you into the present moment and help you to reconnect with yourself and the world around you.
And don't underestimate the power of simply doing nothing.
We live in a culture that glorifies busyness, but sometimes the most restorative thing we can do is just allow ourselves to be still, to let our minds wander, to simply exist without the pressure to be productive.
That's such an important reminder. It's like giving ourselves permission to just be human without all the digital demands constantly vying for our attention.
And as you begin to incorporate these practices into your life, you might find that you actually start to crave those moments of disconnection, that they become an essential part of your routine.
It's like building a new kind of rhythm into your life, a rhythm that honors both your digital and analog needs. One thing that's been in the back of my mind this whole conversation is this idea of tools as extensions of ourselves.
Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but I feel like there's more to unpack there.
Yeah, there's a fascinating thread there that connects to the digital Sabbath in a really profound way.
Let's pull on that thread a bit. What happens to those extensions when we intentionally choose to disconnect? Does it change our relationship with them?
That's a great question. And it leads us to one of the most intriguing aspects of the digital Sabbath.
So we were talking about how these tools can be seen as extensions of ourselves, even shaping the way we think and experience the world. But what happens when we actually choose to put those extensions down?
Yeah. It's like flexing a muscle
Right.
you haven't used in a while,
Mm-hmm.
By choosing to disconnect, we're reminding ourselves that we are not slaves to these tools,
Mm.
that we actually have the power to step away and reclaim our agency.
Makes sense. It's like we're reasserting our dominance over the tools instead of letting them dominate us.
Yeah, and in that act of reclaiming our agency,
Yeah.
something really interesting happens. We start to see those tools in a new light. We become more mindful of how we're using them, more intentional.
So instead of just mindlessly scrolling and clicking, we're actually making conscious choices about how we want to engage with technology.
Exactly. It's like we're shifting from a passive consumer to an active participant.
Right.
We're no longer just letting the technology dictate our actions. We're using it as a tool to achieve, our own goals and aspirations.
That's a really empowering way to think about it. It's like we're taking back control of the steering wheel, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, we often find that we're able to use those tools more effectively.
Right.
We're more focused, more productive, more creative when we're not constantly distracted by them.
Yeah.
It's like clearing out all the clutter from your mind so you can see more clearly. But I'm still kind of stuck on this idea of tools as extensions of ourselves.
Yeah.
If our brains are constantly adapting to these tools, then is it possible that disconnecting could actually be a way of shaping the evolution of our minds?
That's a really fascinating question. It's almost like we're hacking our own evolution by intentionally choosing to disconnect. We're giving our brains the chance to reset, rewire, to adapt in new and unexpected ways.
So we're not just taking a break from technology, we're actually using that break to upgrade our mental hardware.
I love that analogy. And who knows, maybe by intentionally choosing to disconnect, we're actually fostering the development of new cognitive abilities.
Right.
New ways of thinking and being that we haven't even imagined yet.
Wow. That's pretty mind-blowing. So the digital Sabbath is not just a way of coping with the demands of the digital age. It's a way of transcending them, of evolving beyond them.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive recipients of technological progress, but we're actually active participants in shaping the future of our minds and our species.
So in a way, by disconnecting, we're actually connecting with something much larger than ourselves.
Something that speaks to the very essence of what it means to be human.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming our humanity in a world that's increasingly dominated by technology. It's about remembering that we're not just consumers of information, but we're also creators, thinkers, feelers.
And I think that's a really powerful message to leave people with.
Yeah.
It's not about rejecting technology. It's about, using it consciously.
Right.
Intentionally, and knowing when to step away and reconnect with ourselves and the world around us.
It's about finding that balance, that rhythm of connection and disconnection.
Right.
That allows us to thrive in both the digital world and the world beyond the screen.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the digital Sabbath, I want to challenge our listener, you, to think about what one small step you can take this week to experience the benefits of disconnecting.
Maybe it's putting your phone away during dinner.
Right.
Or taking a walk without your headphones. Or maybe it's even carving out a few hours on the weekend to just unplug completely.
Yeah.
And engage in an activity that brings you joy and nourishes your soul.
Whatever it is, approach it with a sense of curiosity.
Right.
Experimentation. You might be surprised at what you discover.
And remember, it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about being intentional. It's about making conscious choices about how you want to live your life in this digital age.
So until next time, happy unplugging.